am Stonewall and joined as well as God. From here, I get a sweep of the whole
We're back to the Functional Human Podcast. Welcome. That is D, and I am Jay. And I think we have a new segment this morning, Daryl. Answer an audience member's question. I don't know if it's going to really be a segment. It was just a good question that somebody asked. And I think we said last time, we would answer the question. So the question was basically, and now I'm going to kick myself in the butt for not going back to actually look at who asked the question. Jay, it's ridiculous. Smooth move, Jay. But the question was a good one because it's something that we talk about a lot. It's like, basically, does the brain prefer glucose, right? Like, is there a certain amount of sugar or glucose that the brain requires? And I think the answer over the years has been yes. And maybe the answer still is yes, but I also think that there's a ton of nuance coming to light. And I wanted to share just a couple of brief things. Like we're not going to do a whole segment on it, but I just wanted to share a couple of things that I found that I thought would answer the question, but also highlight the ongoing area of research. And then Daryl, feel free to jump in. But
Mary Jarvis, I believe, is how you say it.
So happy to have a show partner who can.
What's her name? I hope I said that right.
I think you did.
Jarvis.
I think you did.
Sometimes it depending on what nationality. Sometimes the J is like an H.
Oh, that's true.
Like Spanish.
But. Yeah. So I want to show you guys to answer the question. I'm just going to read you real quick. This is from a paper called "Ketone Bodies as a Fuel for the Brain During Starvation," and I'm going to go to this is actually a very cool paper if you're interested. But I just want to read you this little section here that I thought was interesting. All of us who worked in the Cahill laboratory, and for those of you who aren't familiar, George Cahill was a researcher in the 1960s who did like foundational work on human metabolism. And the reason his research is so important is that you couldn't really do it today. I mean, he put people into deep, prolonged fasts, starvation, and then injected them with insulin to drive their glucose levels even lower. Basically, he was testing the limits of human physiology. Which is incredible because we gained so much knowledge and insight into what the body is capable of and what it does in certain instances. But you could never do that today. You would never be able to pass an ethics board with experiments like that. But in the 1960s, that's the kind of research that was done. And people still refer to that research specifically because it was so important.
Oh. Ethics.
And then the church bells ring. I know, ethics, right, Dara. I know it's a gray area today, isn't it? So all of us who worked in the Cahill laboratory have been gratified by the impact that our studies have had on an understanding of human metabolism. The concept of protein sparing, which is so fundamental of an integrated view of human metabolism, arose directly from this research. Fuel storage depots like subcutaneous and abdominal adipose tissue have a high calorie to weight ratio and are capable of meeting the energy requirements directly or indirectly for most tissues without adverse effects. And there are a variety of mechanisms. But this is the part I really wanted you guys to hear. As we demonstrated, survival during prolonged starvation depends on the ability of the body to spare the oxidation of vital proteins in the liver, muscle, heart, kidney, etc. And when Daryl and I did a whole episode on fasting, we went through the 3 phases of fasting and talked about how the muscle is not preferentially broken down like some people will tell you. Like if you don't eat every 2 hours, you're going to break down your muscle, or that even when you just do an intermittent fast, that you're going to start to lose muscle mass. I can't tell you how many people comment that, and that's just not how human physiology works. And we went over that, and this paper continues to highlight that. Of special importance in this regard is the metabolic role of ketones. Because of their association with diabetes, ketone bodies were long held to reflect a disease state. And our research totally changed this view. Ketone bodies are synthesized from acetyl-CoA generated by the oxidation of fatty acids in the liver. the fact that a significant portion of the fatty acids mobilized from adipose tissue is converted to ketone bodies for brain metabolism during starvation is significant. And this is important here. Fatty acids themselves are not metabolized by the brain, so that ketone bodies, which do cross the blood-brain barrier, are the fuel of choice during starvation. Okay, so that's a whole lot of stuff just to say the answer is we know that there's at least a secondary fuel source during starvation or when glucose is not as readily available. But then I want to read these last couple of things from Dr. Ben Bickman's lab because he does a ton of work on this.
I love him.
He's great. And he just like a true scientist, he really doesn't have a lot of dogma. And when he has a bias, he always admits it up front, like we try to do. So research by Dr. Ben Bickman suggests that the brain can utilize ketones even in the presence of glucose, and that ketones may even be a preferred fuel source. Bickman's research demonstrates that increasing ketone levels in the blood leads to the brain immediately starting to rely on ketones, even when glucose levels are significantly higher. So that's really interesting, right? We always thought, and when that paper I just read to you said that, okay, well, ketones are a byproduct of fat metabolism, and when the glucose levels in the brain are gone, then ketones step in and they run the show. But what Bickman's lab is showing is that even in the presence of high glucose levels, the brain will still use ketones. He highlights the energetic advantages of ketones, indicating that they produce more chemical energy than glucose. We definitely know that. Additionally, his lab studies on post-mortem brain tissue reveal that glucose-burning genes are compromised in Alzheimer's disease, while ketone-burning genes remain unaffected. And this suggests that ketones can fill the energetic gap caused by impaired glucose metabolism in such conditions, potentially improving cognitive function. So I think the answer is still, we don't fully know what the ratio is, how much glucose the brain needs, if it needs any at all, but the research is trending in one direction. Once upon a time, we thought the brain could only use glucose and that was it, and that's wrong. And now we're seeing even with glucose present, the ketones will be utilized. So now the question is, how much glucose is actually necessary? And we don't know the answer yet, but it's pretty cool to see the physiology be understood better and the paradigm start to shift in that direction, that glucose is not necessary in most cells. It is in red blood cells because they don't have a mitochondria, but the brain, that's still an open question. So.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense when you think about where we come from, right? Like, I think a lot in the nutrition world that happens is that people want like yes, it's like this. Go this way, go that way, don't do this. And I don't think that that's real life, And just like in our primal years, we primarily ate meat and fat, but we did indulge in fruit when we had access to it. So it's sort of like you need all of it, but I think people just get too wrapped up in wanting a yes/no answer, and I don't think it's that simple.
It's a great point.
And each individual is different as well. Like some people, might be predisposed to not having the best ability to metabolize fat at a current time. It could be fixed. It could be worked on, but I think each individual needs to understand where they lack in terms of digestibility and how they are impacted with certain fuels and go from there. And then again, just because you can't metabolize fat very well doesn't mean you should stick to high sugar or high carb diet. You can fix that, but it's just like it's never in my opinion, it's not. I shouldn't say never, but it's not always a yes/no.
It rarely is, Daryl. Yeah. I mean, if you look at biochemistry, if you look at any kind of, I think that was one of my most eye-opening experiences was, going into grad school thinking that I knew a lot because I had finished NTA and I did know a lot more than the average person and I could help a lot of people. But I always want to know more. And so when I got into grad school, I think I've kind of told the story before, but my first semester was anatomy and physiology and introduction to biochemistry. And when I tell you that after the first weekend of classes, I wanted to lay down and die, because the information was insane, because I didn't even know that door existed. I guess, I mean, on some level, I knew that there was a whole world of things I didn't understand, right? Like, but it wasn't something, again, I had no exposure to it. So I didn't even know how deep the rabbit hole went. And in that first weekend, my biochemistry teacher, she was like a robot. She stood up there for like 8 hours and just wrote out, we're looking at the pathways of electrons in certain elements, and we're talking about valence electrons, and we're like doing things that I had. This was like a new language I was learning, and I remember going home that weekend, my brain hurt because it was just like trying to focus. And by the end of the weekend, I knew that I had lost most of that information, but that was just the sort of beginning of it. And when you realize the complexity of biology and biochemistry, you almost kind of laugh when people say things like, good, bad, yes, no, black, white. As you said, it's rarely, I can't even off the top of my head think of a time where that's usually an accurate statement. There's so much nuance, and that's what we try to do here. We try to, like, we're going to go through a few things today and try to like explain this to people in a way that they can understand, but you don't have to understand the depth of all of it. You just have to try to take away the big picture and really always be mindful of the fact that there are a variety of ways you can approach something, and don't get stuck in looking for those black and white, yes or no answers, because it's just not the norm that's the case. So that's a point well taken. So, okay. So I want to do something kind of fun. I wasn't planning on doing this, but two different people sent me two different things, and I was like, okay.
I see them at the bottom there, and I'm already annoyed. So we for those who don't know, we can see like what the other person wants to present at the bottom of our like recording screen, and I can see already 2 images with titles, and I already know where this is going. So
I wonder if you've seen them, because I saw them, and usually we run into the same things on social media, but this is the first half of this episode 76, part 1, I think is really going to be about the media and what drives narratives. That's my theme here. Sometimes over the course of the week, that's what I know. Money. Exactly, Daryl. Exactly. And the one thing I'm going to say about these 2 clips we're going to watch, they're only like a minute long, so neither of them are long. But I want you to pay attention to, how similar they are, and pay attention to how annoyed Daryl gets after both of them. Okay, here we go. Let's start.
All right, I'll dial it in.
Let's start with number 1.
Toxic, says the guy with no sources to back it up. Let's rely on research and not rumors for what we put on our plates. If seed oils are so harmful, then why does every major health authority around the world recommend them? The World Health Organization recommends replacing saturated fats with polyunsaturated fats, just like those found in soybean oil. See, soybean oil is high in linoleic acid, which is shown to help reduce LDL cholesterol and may lower heart disease risk. The science is clear, and it doesn't come from the comment sections on social media. The real issue? We've confused "I saw this on a reel" with "I read this in a peer-reviewed journal." Soybean oil isn't a scary villain, it's just cooking oil. Most of the seed oil panic come from people who think that processed means problematic, but they also seem to forget that processed and ultra-processed are 2 different things. Soybean oil is just pressed and refined. It's a single ingredient, not an essay on the nutrition facts label. The seed oils aren't the enemy. Sedentary lifestyles, junk food 24/7, and social media science, those might be. Bon appetit. Tastes like facts and a healthy lipid panel. And if you want the real facts, visit ussoy.org/allaboutseedoils for more information.
Says the guy making a social media reel.
And at the top of the screen there, it says
toxic, says the guy with no sources to back.
I just put it back on, but it says paid partnership with US Soy. So.
Correct. And that's the only part of this, Daryl, that I will give him credit for at least owning up to it, like from the jump. And if you read,
I don't think they have a choice.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe he could not say that it was a paid sponsor, right? No.
Yeah, I think
you could just lie about it, but I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But, yeah.
So the comments were great, which is why I kind of left them out. You can't really read them, but you go through the comments, and the first 10 or 20 comments are like, this is being brought to you by a, soybean. Like, why would I want to take the research from that? And there's so much, I don't want to spend too much time on this. This guy is just a clown. He's an RD, which, again, no offense to the RDs out there. I know the RDs that follow us are pretty on the ball, and they're pretty aggravated at the world of RDs as well. But flashing a bunch of studies on the screen that I guarantee you he has not read. These were the studies that US Soy probably said, here, use these, right, to reference. I guarantee you he didn't read them. Throwing them up on the screen so that we can't read them. Daryl, you and I just went through this exercise this week. I gave you a study on aspartame and heart disease. You think about how much effort it takes to go through a study. And this guy just popped like 6 studies up on the screen just to like have that appeal of authority. Like, look, I have research. You're not going to read it. There wasn't even enough time to read the titles.
Yeah.
And then he goes into the thing about how come all the U.S. health authorities recommend. It's like, wow. So this is all just appeal to authority. Whatever the authorities say is what we should do. Did you not live?
But also, it's all changing as well. Like RFK is changing all that, and companies are changing as well.
And
They're
why do you think
soybean out of their products? Yeah.
And I think also, Daryl, don't you think maybe that's why all of a sudden now, because I'm starting to see this a lot. Yeah. That's why these companies are like, oh, we need to get out ahead of this because RFK is trying to push us away from seed oils. And even interestingly enough, I don't know if you noticed this, but when I first started really like posting quite a bit on Instagram, and maybe 2019 was when I really started, these were not called seed oils. I was calling them industrial seed oils because I was trying to shift that Overton window, and a few other people were doing it too, because they were always called vegetable oils. But now even the companies themselves and the people who are defending them are forced to refer to them as seed oils, which I think is a great thing, because vegetable oil is sort of like gives it a much more of an air of health than industrial seed oil. So I just thought that little slight nuance was interesting. It was not that way in 2019. There were very few people calling them seed oils. In fact, most people said, well, what is a seed oil? And then I would have to say vegetable oil, and they go, oh, okay, I see. So that was just another interesting thing. All right, let me do this next one, and then you can see it's a very similar script. Obviously, this script was given to them. Remember when we covered the influencers and artificial sweeteners and how much they were paid to read, and they can choose what talking points they want. So
I wish you could see the oil he used, because he hid it. Like the brand. I would like to see the brand so that we could go in and research the brand, because it didn't look like the only reason I'm saying this is because usually like the fancy looking brands will be the ones, not always, but usually the ones that will prioritize like cold pressed and perhaps an organic label. And I do want to make a difference there. And even in all oils, that the quality of the product matters, but it looked like a plastic no-name soybean oil thing. So there's no fucking way that there's no solvents and shit like that in that. And on top of that, you're telling me it's inorganic GMO soy. Yeah.
Well, these people are also the people, them. They also defend glyphosate and GMOs and everything. So they're, dietitians, generally speaking, very, very much so defending the status quo of everything. So it's not a surprise to see dietitians doing this. So let's listen to this next one and see what she has to say in a very similar manner about.
Remind me to tell you a story after about, I did a grocery shopping class with a client of mine who is from Haiti.
Okay.
How you say
Haiti?
Haiti. Yeah.
Haiti?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it right after this.
I'm a dietitian that's about to make a recipe with seed oils. Let's talk about them. I know there's a lot of misinformation circulating about seed oils, and that is why I partnered with US Soy to empower you with the facts. I'm making crispy chickpea and veggie fritters, by the way. I'll put the recipe in the caption. For this recipe, I'm using soybean oil, which is a type of seed oil. Seed oils are vegetable oils that are derived from the seed rather than the fruit of the plant, like olive oil. Seed oils, like soybean oil, contain unsaturated fatty acids, like the omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acid, linoleic acid. Did you know that linoleic acid found in soybean oil has been shown to have favorable effects on total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol?
Notice both of them. The only thing they really have is cholesterol, bad cholesterol, bad cholesterol. That's their.
But that's also, she's stating the same thing as him, that I can't say that word.
Linoleic acid.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. has been associated with lower LDL. He said the same
Right.
thing.
Yep.
So
Yep. Talking points. All right.
Cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, used as a replacement for dietary saturated fat, which, by the way, the dietary guidelines for Americans encourage replacing your saturated fats with unsaturated fats to support cardiovascular health. But perhaps you're thinking, what about the inflammation? Well, you'll be happy to know that the authors of a narrative review evaluated 15 RCTs from 2012 and a meta-analysis of 30 RCTs from 2017. And they concluded that linoleic acid does not increase inflammation. Some people worry that linoleic acid, found in seed oils, causes inflammation because it turns into arachidonic acid in the body. But research shows over the past 15 years that this conversion barely happens. The body tightly regulates arachidonic acid levels, and most arachidonic acid actually comes from animal products, not seed oils. Plus, it can have both pro and anti-inflammatory effects. Doesn't that look so delicious? As a dietitian, it is my responsibility to share evidence-based information. I wouldn't have partnered with US Soy if I had any doubts about the science. I saw this as a great opportunity to give you clear facts about seed oils. Choose the oil that works best for your nutrition and cooking needs, but know that seed oils are a safe, nutritious option too. If you want more information about seed oils, check the link in my bio or go to
Yeah, we're all set, honey.
yeah, there's no meat in that, by the way. It's a vegetarian dish she's cooking.
Holy mackerel. Dietary guidelines, appeal to authority, LDL cholesterol. They both talk about inflammation. But again, inflammation is highly variable based on a bunch of factors. We've covered that in our episode on seed oils, and it's not just inflammation. But again, she's so convinced about the science, and I'm really kind of wondering if she has any real competency to understand anything deeper than just inflammation. And notice all the jump cuts. I feel like she couldn't go through like half of a sentence with all of that stuff without cutting, which makes me wonder if she actually understands this information at all,
Yeah, for that, it might be, that's like a trendy thing people are doing.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And I know there's also a limit on some of the stories or whatever you're doing, a limit, but I'm unconvinced that she actually has the scientific rigor. She's another RD to actually understand what she's talking about. When people just start saying things like, well, a meta-analysis showed this. It's like, again, you've got to, if you really want to say that, you've got to look through the individual studies and find the quality of the studies, because for the most part, they're epidemiological and they really can't show causation. So it's very hard to make the claims that she's making, but hey, US Soy told her and paid her. So that's all that really matters.
Also using a big jar of plastic no-name soybean oil. So
well, plastic is fine too, Daryl, along with GMOs and glyphosate, didn't you
know?
So tell us your story about your shopping trip.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. I was actually kind of stunned when she said this to me. We were going through the grocery store, stunned, but then I understood very well. We were going through the grocery store and I was explaining to her the difference between organic versus inorganic. And we took avocado, for example, and she stopped me and she says, I don't believe in that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe in that? She's like, I don't believe in organic versus inorganic. She's like, in Haiti, like, she's like, what is this? Like in Haiti, when we eat the avocado, all you have to do is grab the seed and throw it on the ground and it'll grow. And I was like,
interesting.
Oh, my friend.
Whole different world.
And she's like, and on top of that, she's like, it takes years to grow. So how come you guys have so much organic just growing and growing? And I was like, yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I explained to her, unfortunately, Canada, US has different protocols when it comes to mass industry farming and growing. So she was like, oh, she was like, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. I mean, really, because it's actually kind of beautiful in a way. The ignorance. I don't mean ignorance in like a negative way. I mean, because, people who sometimes that live in poorer countries or just live in places that are relatively untouched by Western culture, they are much more in tune with nature, and they don't. It's like seasonality. The concept where I was going to jump in, and when you were speaking about what we used to eat and fruits and vegetables, and I always say lost seasonality. That's like something that's so ingrained in people because you just simply can't eat what's not growing. But here you can force things to grow at times that they're not supposed to, or you can just ship them from all around the world, which is why you can get certain things 365 days of the year. And that's not necessarily conducive to good health. And it's so beautiful that someone still doesn't understand that. And I wish that she could both have the knowledge that we have to protect her in this Western society, but also retain the beauty of like living closer to nature. If there's a way to do that, that would be a really nice, combination.
Yeah, she was great. It was nice to see that. It was kind of refreshing, to be honest. I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Did you
super
see
cool.
as well? I think they were already doing this, but I just saw a reel about it this morning that Appeal is going to be on organic produce without labels.
I did.
Mm.
I did.
They were already doing it on apples. I knew that, but
yeah. I don't know what to make of any of this yet, Daryl.
do we know how to differentiate yet? I think they have to put a thing underneath
yeah,
like where nobody like where you can't see. You have to basically well, I'll see because I'm 5 foot, so it'll perfectly.
We're all gonna have to go shopping with Daryl.
Like,
Daryl, come with me.
Right here, got it.
Daryl, go down that aisle, find Appeal. Good girl. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
people who aren't watching the video are not going to understand what just happened.
That's okay. That'll make them want to watch the video. Yeah, it's discouraging. It's discouraging because, it doesn't feel like no matter what we do, that the world is just, and it is actually, the world is fighting against us. I shouldn't say the world. I should say the few people, the Bill Gates of the world, the people that think, I mean, when you think about Bill Gates for one moment, one guy thinks that he should be able to put whatever he wants on your food, genetically modify mosquitoes, block out the sun, and demand you take experimental gene-altering medications. One guy
honestly
thinks that he should be able to do this.
Yeah. I'm going to say it. Fuck that guy. Who do you think you are?
Yeah. Amazing. And people defend him. Like, I just, whatever. But it is discouraging because we are up against it. But hey, we're not going to give up. We're not going to quit. We're just going to keep going. And we're going to figure out ways around all this shit. And that's why you're all here. Yeah. Because
I've seen a lot of push or people flipping. I see it a lot on TikTok. I've been having to spend more time on TikTok because my social media girl tells me.
So sorry.
Yeah. And I have seen like a huge shift since RFK has been appointed to so much that there are people I used to follow and love who were just like this one girl, I can't remember her name. Doesn't matter. I don't want to out her anyway, but she was just so wholesome. She was really wholesome, and she always made like wholesome TikToks, and it was nice to see because otherwise it's just like a parade of show usually on there. And then she switched all of a sudden. No. Yeah, now she's stopped doing those kinds of videos, and everything she talks about is the Liberal Party, the vaccines and measles, and the proof of what vaccines do on kids and how we should not be removing these and yada yada. Like she just that completely shifted. I had to unfollow her. I was like, oh my god, like not because I just had because I was like
Daryl, no,
you were positive.
Hold on a second. No, you don't need to explain that. In fact, I think this is a really good, just pause for 1 second. You do not have to apologize for this. There have been several times, I think and it's a variety of things. So obviously it was first COVID. Was so therapeutic to unfollow people. And again, it's not because I'm afraid of information that counters what I believe.
That's what I meant.
And I knew that's what you meant. That's why I wanted to clarify. It has nothing to do with that. It's about protecting your energy and not constantly triggering that primal response where you just want to jump down someone's throat, because that's not healthy for you or the other person. But it was everything from that. It was the Israeli strikes on Iran that got the US involved. Like every once in a while, these things pop out and I see how people act and I'm like, oh, that's who you really are. Bye-bye. Like I'm all set with you. I'm not wasting a moment anymore.
The reason it didn't even fire me up because it's so clear to me that somebody grabbed her because she has a huge following and started telling her what to dish out. It's just
you think
so
paying
clear.
her too?
I don't.
You don't know, maybe.
I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
very clear, and she seems like a smart woman, but not in like, I don't know details about every single thing in the world,
does?
from vaccines to geoengineering to like, she just knows, all of a sudden she knows so much about all that stuff, and I'm like, there's no fucking way. You sent me a paper that we're going to talk about at next episode of 15 pages, and she's like just dishing out papers and I'm like, there's no fucking way she went through all this. Like, she's a mom too, she has a job, like
Right.
and it was just very apparent. There was another guy too that I was following, and I had to stop following him. He was also famous for, like, you're gonna laugh at this, but he's famous for chopping wood, and but he also had, that's not why I followed him, okay? I followed him because he had really good statements. Like, he was just the same kind of approach as her, but he was just very smart and very just had really good messages that counter the TikTok and the Instagrams and the virtual world, and just like really allowing humans to reconnect with other humans. So that's why I was like following him, and it was nice to see that. And all of a sudden, same thing. Complete change. Now he's chopping woods, talking all about this kind of shit, and I'm like, well, fuck. All right,
Yeah,
I have to follow you too. So yeah, it's just, it was very apparent, and I love that I don't get angry at these things, because it's just like, oh, okay, well, something happened there.
and don't be afraid to unfollow people like that. It's just, it's not worth your time. And to be honest, like Daryl said, there's a good chance that when someone makes a 90-degree turn like that, it's not organic, because real, as you know, Daryl, personally, and as I definitely know personally, real evolution takes years, because you've got to question everything you thought, and it's not a clean break. You're going to struggle because you've spent how long believing certain things and seeing the world in a certain way. I've never seen an organic break like that. It does not happen like that. And if it does, you've got to question the authenticity. And then, of course, question the money, because it's always worth questioning. And as you said, like when we showed in that guy's video, when he just pops up a bunch of studies on screen, I'm like, dude, from someone who studied in school and who read research and who understands the time it takes, you just can't throw a bunch of studies on screen and think. But I know the lay person will go, well, look at all those studies. And it's like, yeah, look at all those studies. Did you read them? No, you just looked at all the studies.
If you want to state studies, like, typically you can also just, I guess, put them in your post, but it's helpful sometimes to actually state what the study says and show it and go through it, kind of like what we do here. But and for those two examples I gave about those people on TikTok, they weren't very political to begin with, so I don't know where they stood beforehand. Right. It just went from one genre of content, which was very, positive and wholesome, to all of a sudden it's all fucking political, and they are experts at everything on that political side. So it's just very like,
Well, there is no doubt that just in the nutrition space, as there are people like we just saw who are paid to push a narrative, there are absolutely 100%, without a doubt, I know for a fact, people in the political sphere that are co-opted when they have large followings to push a message. And I always reference this show because I really like it. It's a show very similar to ours, the Dark Horse podcast. I talk about it all the time. They, Brett Weinstein and his wife, both biologists, they talked about this in a recent episode about their demonetization from YouTube. And I loved it because they actually were finally starting to make serious income. They even said, like, potentially life-changing income. And they were told by YouTube that if during COVID, if they just stopped talking about certain things, that they would be able to have their money, their income stream replenished. And they made the decision that it wasn't worth it. And I give them a ton of credit for that. And it's the same kind of thing. So if you think that, oh boy, like these narratives out there, most of the time they are being pushed monetarily. And because the ones that are counter, either get demonetized, shadow banned, hidden, or outright banned. And that was very apparent from the years 2020 to 2024 between the 2020 election in the United States and COVID. You could shake a stick at how many people were banned for saying the wrong word. People were talking in code because they were trying to save their channels, but still get their message out. That is the world that we live in. And if you don't understand that, you're going to be more easily led astray by people who seem to be authentic, but in reality are not very authentic, which is a shame.
In Canada, they'll just stop you. They'll say misinformation. You can't post this. So.
Right. That's one way to do it. All right. Yeah. So there's still some things I want to go over, and we're going to start next week with a really interesting little exercise that I came up with. But I want to close this one out because everything we've been talking about actually relates to this. Remember last week we talked about the plot to get RFK. And so I'm just going to briefly, we're not going to read this article. I just want to show you a post on Twitter of someone that I trust very much that has written a story that seems to indicate that
it
would appear that we were onto something. We spoke specifically about Senator Cassidy. And the title of this report is Senate Ethics Crisis. Cassidy's plot to undermine RFK may violate federal law. Do you remember Daryl, we said, hey, pay attention now between now and September. If they start doing things like elevating Dr. Oz and trying to take down RFK, we're going to know. So I'm just going to read you the opening little paragraph, and you guys, I'll link it if you guys want to read. It's a really great article. In a stunning development that should trigger, but by the way, this is from Chaos Coordinator on X. In a stunning development that should trigger Senate ethics investigations and potential legal action, leaked images and transcripts reveal Senator Cassidy, a sitting U.S. Senator for the state of Louisiana, engaging in what legal analysts are calling a covert and coordinated attempt to oust a cabinet-level official, Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The material shows Senator Cassidy conspiring to manipulate public and internal perception to pressure the president, Donald Trump, into removing RFK and replacing him with a preferred loyalist. The scheme, documented in writing and captured on camera as Senator Kennedy typed it, includes a clear intent to fabricate a sense of internal chaos, stay silent to mask involvement, and elevate an alternative candidate, Oz, as part of the replacement strategy. Who is Oz? It is TV personality and surgeon Dr. Mehmet Oz. These actions, premeditated, organized, and documented, may constitute federal criminal violations. And she even has screenshots of, apparently she was sitting on a plane behind Senator Cassidy and got a view of his screen. So this is kind of incredible.
Know your surroundings.
Yeah. And she's the kind of reporter that I fully, I very rarely, her stuff is panned out often. She barely ever says anything without the facts to back it up. So anyway, I only wanted to show you that, and I'll put the link below if you guys want to read the article that she wrote. I just thought it was super timely. So we're sitting here last week going, this is interesting. There's senators. And by the way, Daryl, just to highlight that there are no teams. Senator Cassidy is a Republican. So in other words, he's supposed to be he's in Donald Trump's party. He should be a Donald Trump supporter. And here he is playing games in the background, thus proving that it makes no difference what party or team you think you're on. Every man for himself, and that's what it is, which is why you can only trust individuals. You cannot trust parties. Do not throw your blind allegiance behind a movement. Identify people by their actions, by their words, by the gut feeling you have on them. Senator Cassidy was also one of those clowns in the confirmation hearing that was really giving Kennedy a hard time because he's an MD and he believes in vaccines, right?
He's a physician.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I just thought that was super interesting because I came across it right after we did our show last week on all of this. And I was like, well, look at that. It looks like the plot, even though the document was released, it doesn't seem like they cared much about the fact that the Brownstone Institute wrote about it. And they were like, let's just keep going. So pay attention, everybody, because what we talked about last week may very much come to fruition between now and September. So we'll see.
They're obviously all going to get fucking.
I mean, I hope so.
How else could it manifest? You have someone literally, like, I would not ever be able to be in the same room as this person.
I know. I mean, I guess, and from the perspective of RFK, he's probably used to it. I think people have been trying to get him and get Trump for a long time. So what I'll tell you is that for both, from what I hear from sources like her and other sources, again, the very few that I trust, only because they've been on the money for the last 5 years, and they've not been clickbaity. They've not been advertising a bunch of, monetary kinds of things. What I'll say is to expect continued pushes for, outlandish stories in the media about Trump, about RFK. Like, really, they are, because things are really changing now. They are trying to sow discontent in the public, and they're trying to create the artificial chaos underneath the surface that, every administration has some degree of chaos because everyone has different opinions on things, but they are trying to push the narrative that everything is falling apart. And so just beware, for the rest of this year, over the next few months, the stuff is coming fast and furious, and I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse because, exactly, Daryl, because a lot of political exposures are on the forefront, and I think that people will do anything, kicking and screaming, in order to prevent that from happening. So I guess that's a good place to close out our part one. Impeach 44. So yeah, that's great. That was a lot of fun. And next time, I've got a fun little exercise to go through, and then we'll talk about a couple of other things, including this little paper on aspartame and heart disease. I want to just tell you real quick, Daryl is so committed to this that I give Daryl a paper. I think I need to start clarifying. Daryl sent me a screenshot of her reading the paper, and she's like, Jay, what the hell's going on here? Daryl is getting lost in like the laboratory methodologies, which I have such deep respect for. But I'm like, Daryl, you don't need to understand the laboratory methodologies, but Daryl,
there were more symbols than English words, and English is my second language, so you can understand what the fuck my brain was doing. I was like, is he serious right now? Like, priceless. And it's like 15 pages anyway.
Daryl puts in the work. I was just going to say that. So, but we don't need to get lost in the methodologies. That's for you guys at home too. You don't need to get lost in the methodology. That's for, the lab geeks and the people who might want to understand something specific more. I just wanted to understand the concept. So we're going to talk about that next week.
It's everything. I don't like to half-ass understand.
I know. And that's why we do this show. All right. So
look
forward to that next week, and we will see you then.
Ciao for now.